World War I, an unprecedented conflict that consumed 4 years, took millions of lives, and reshaped the global landscape forever. It was an era of devastation, but it was also a time when individuals stepped forward, advocating for peace amid the turmoil. Today, we spotlight 6 figures whose efforts to end the war and establish lasting peace left a profound impact on history. No narration, allowing the scene to resonate with view. No narration, allowing the image to linger in the viewer's mind. Let's begin with a name that stands out in the annals of diplomacy: Woodrow Wilson, the 28th President of the United States. Serving during the heart of the war, Wilson is remembered for his transformative vision of global peace. In 1918, he introduced the 14 Points, a plan that offered a roadmap for ending the war without harsh retributions. Wilson later played a leading role in the Paris Peace Conference of 1919, attempting to translate his ideas into action. Though the League of Nations was born, his vision fell short in one crucial way: the United States never joined, leaving the League without the enforcement power it needed to succeed. Still, Wilson's ideas inspired cooperation and dialogue in ways that hadn't been seen before, making him an enduring symbol of peace efforts during and after the war. Across the Atlantic, in France, another major figure shaped post-war diplomacy: Prime Minister Georges Clemenceau, also known as the Tiger. Clemenceau's approach to peace was rooted in the need for security, given the immense losses France suffered during the war. As one of the architects of the Treaty of Versailles, Clemenceau sought to ensure that Germany would never be able to wage a war of such magnitude again. While some argue the treaty's harsh terms arguably sowed the seeds for future conflict, Clemenceau believed holding Germany accountable was key to protecting France in the years to come. His work alongside Woodrow Wilson and British Prime Minister David Lloyd George formed the backbone of the treaty negotiations, making him a central player in the quest for peace. Speaking of David Lloyd George, the British leader faced unique challenges in balancing the demands of his people with the larger goal of a stable Europe. As Britain's Prime Minister from 1916, Lloyd George worked to secure a peace deal that acknowledged Britain's sacrifices during the war while keeping the future in mind. He walked a fine line between Clemenceau's push for strict measures against Germany and Wilson's more lenient proposals. His ability to mediate between these contrasting approaches was pivotal in shaping the final treaty. While Lloyd George wasn't entirely satisfied with the end result, his pragmatism helped solidify a peace deal that, however fragile, brought a formal end to the war in 1919. But peace efforts weren't confined to the political stage. From the heart of the Vatican, Pope Benedict XV emerged as an unsung hero of peace advocacy. Often overlooked in World War I history, the Pope used his position as a neutral spiritual leader to call for an early end to the fighting. In 1917, he issued a message known as the Peace Note, urging nations to resolve their differences through compromise rather than bloodshed. His proposal included recommendations like disarmament, the return of occupied territories, and fair reparations. Although his calls were largely ignored by the warring powers, Pope Benedict XV's unwavering commitment to peace and humanitarian aid earned him lasting respect, especially among those suffering the war's devastating consequences. Another key figure in shaping the post-war vision for peace was Jan Smuts, a South African statesman and member of the British War Cabinet. As one of the intellectual architects of the League of Nations, Smuts held a firm belief in collective security and global cooperation. While many were focused solely on ending the conflict, Smuts was thinking ahead, imagining a world where diplomacy could prevent future wars. His ideas contributed significantly to the structure of the League, laying the groundwork for later international bodies like the United Nations. Smuts's leadership during this time demonstrated how even in the midst of war, some leaders dared to imagine a brighter, more connected future. And finally, we turn to Herbert Hoover, whose efforts were less about diplomacy and more about humanity. Before he became the 31st President of the United States, Hoover was a humanitarian at heart. As the head of the Commission for Relief in Belgium, he organized relief efforts that provided vital food and aid to millions of civilians trapped in war-torn regions. Hoover's efficient management of these operations not only saved countless lives, but also eased post-war tensions by fostering goodwill and rebuilding trust among nations. His work highlighted the importance of compassion during a time of conflict and set an example for international aid efforts in the decades to come. While these 6 individuals approached peace from different angles, diplomacy, humanitarianism, or spiritual leadership, they all shared a common dream: to end the destruction and prevent it from happening again. Their efforts bore mixed results. The Treaty of Versailles, while it officially ended World War I, left deep scars, particularly in Germany, where resentment over its terms later fueled the rise of extremism and the onset of World War II. The League of Nations was a groundbreaking concept, but without U.S. participation and facing a lack of collective will, it struggled to prevent future conflicts. Despite these challenges, the foundations laid during this time were invaluable stepping stones toward global diplomacy. Figures like Herbert Hoover and Pope Benedict XV demonstrated that peace is not only about negotiations in grand halls, but also about the day-to-day labor of alleviating suffering and fostering hope. Meanwhile, leaders like Woodrow Wilson, George Clemenceau, David Lloyd George, and John Smuts challenged the world to imagine a new kind of post-war order. In the end, their ambitions proved that even in the darkest of times, the pursuit of peace is a duty we cannot abandon. Their successes and failures offer lessons that continue to guide nations facing the challenges of war and diplomacy today. And now we turn to you. Who do you think played the most impactful role in advocating for peace during World War I? Let us know your thoughts, and don't forget to join us next time as we delve into another chapter of history's lessons. Until then, let's keep striving for that most elusive, most vital goal: peace.